standard intro. Nick Ellinger, Chief Brand Officer of More, and happy to be with you today. When I say standard intro, the things that I want to say are first, please let us know if you have anything that you would like covered in future things. I'm having trouble with inflation. How do I address it? I'm having challenges with acquisition mail response rates, or how Facebook ads are working, or all those sorts of things. Let us know, and we can try to tailor our content toward your needs. The other thing is, on the flip side of that, if you have interesting tests you would like to share, please shout those out as well, because we do like to put those out into the world. So starting off here with a few folks that asked about how do I increase average gift in this time of inflation. We had talked about it in a previous test of the month, wanted to circle back around to it. There were a few new tests that we'd done within the enterprise that I wanted to share. First was a round number test. The rescue mission, I believe in this case, was doing per meal. Takes, can you make an $8.80 gift or a $24.80 gift to be able to provide this number of meals? We've talked about in previous that round numbers tend to work best. However, symbolic asks can also be valuable. So which one wins out? In this case, it was the test that the idea that the round numbers had a higher response rate, higher average gift, higher revenue per piece. And that's that rare mix of response rate and average gift working. I will say that I front-loaded this test because it's one of the more successful ones. There are a couple others that are a little bit more muddled, but we will go through today. Most recent contribution versus highest previous contribution. We've talked about how this may vary by audience type. With a current audience, highest previous contribution, and with an acquisition audience, seemed to work better on a revenue per piece basis. However, the bottom one you see here was a retest of a previous year where most recent contribution won. And so those are, I would say those are kind of, if you're looking at rollout strategies and not by audience type, those can tend to be more of a 6 to 5 and pick 'em test rather than something that's really tailored toward the audience. One of our groups tested out modal giving, asked them for their most common gift, and that actually tended to suppress response rate a little bit. And then you may be familiar with the French ask, which is asking for 6 or 7 different options at once. Having more didn't seem to be a panacea. Having 4 options with most recent contribution highlighted actually beat out 6 options. And then a control versus 7 options. 7 did increase response rate, but dropped that average gift. And so revenue per piece went down. So as we've said before, some of these tests may be helpful for you based on your goals. And you do have to select these based on the goals. Do you want to take a response rate average gift trade-off or vice versa? So important to know that going in. Feel free to shout out any questions as you have going along. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about today is an interesting test around consent, asking people to opt in. And those of you who have read my book, New Nonprofit, up here, know that that's an area that I'm very big on. The basic, if you want to skip 40 pages of reading, the basic underlying theory is let's get consent to talk with our donors before we're required to, before the bureaucrats get involved. And for a number of reasons, not the least of which is people who opt in tend to give more. So there was a test that tested that very proposition. But before I do that, this is an interesting side note on consent that we've talked about in a previous test of the month, but did want to circle back to here. When people gave additional information for their profile, they were far more likely to retain with donors choose and made higher gifts. So much so that in this study, whether someone filled out additional informational forms about themselves was the most predictive variable, more so than I'm giving to a local school versus I'm giving to one that I don't know. As you might guess, people who are giving to far or flung schools are more likely to retain because they are coming in because they weren't teacher referred. They're giving of their own. And so you can see the difference in teacher referred, non-teacher referred here, not as big as the difference in consent and additional information going in here. So failure to give an answer is an answer in and of itself. So does giving consent for communications matter similarly? And so the researchers have this idea. They are looking at membership, and specifically membership that would require a more frequent giving behavior. So looking at how the researchers defined terms, they said, they defined it based on email address. Are you sharing your email address with the organization and giving them permission to email you? So pretty simple. Occasional donors they view as non-committed donors who give sporadically, all one-time giving, no monthly. And then members are donors who commit to the organization on a long-term basis and make regular donations through a membership program. So the goal of this organization was, how do we figure out how to get these occasional donors to become members and give more frequently? So the questions that the researchers had, and the first one is essentially the same thing phrased different ways. Do people who give consent want a relationship with the organization, and vice versa? Because very difficult to disentangle which of those is the causal factor. Do people who give consent want a deeper relationship, or is it people who want a deeper relationship give consent? And is there that correlation? So that's what they're looking to test. And do people who give more or more frequently, are they more likely to want a relationship and want membership and want those types of communications? So this was done with a Western European country charitable organization. They have a national and international focus on poverty alleviation, and they looked at 7 years of data. And this is one of those slides that's a bit of an eye chart, so we'll walk through. First thing, these are correlations. The stars that you're seeing are statistical significances. 3 stars is statistically significant at the most likely level. And you can see the biggest impact on whether someone would become a member is whether they gave consent to direct marketing. So very predictive across a couple of different models that they looked at here. On the flip side, frequency and amount of given were negatively correlated with whether someone would want a deeper relationship, want to become a member, want to donate more frequently. I'm going to say that again because it's counterintuitive. People who gave more didn't necessarily want, and in fact were negatively correlated with wanting a deeper relationship. So pretty interesting there. And then you say, well, what about the people who gave more frequently but gave consent through direct marketing? And there's a positive correlation, and it's statistically significant in one case, not all cases. So if you think about it as kind of the classic consultant 2x2 chart, the people who are most likely to become members with this organization are the people who give consent but don't give frequently, followed by the people who give consent but give frequently or high amounts. And then the lowest, the people who are least likely, are the people who don't give consent but give all the time or give higher amounts. And I know that's weird and count. So how is the desire to have a relationship measured? They kind of conflated the idea of membership with this idea of a deeper relationship. So if going from a donor, an infrequent donor, to a member and one who gives more frequently. So some counterintuitive results. People who opt in are more likely to want a relationship and want a membership relationship. Or it could be that people who are more likely to want that membership relationship are more likely to opt in, but there's definitely predictive nature there. And because they're time series, they were able to kind of look at it and say, look, opting in predicts wanting this membership relationship, wanting to give more. The less obvious result is people who give more and more frequently are less likely to become members unless they also opt in. Why is that? So the question is, are we saying people who give less frequently are more likely to suddenly become members? Yes, we are, and it's weird. So why is that? So our results show that a higher frequency of giving as well as higher amounts donated does not always lead donors to make a long-term commitment, be more loyal, or stay for longer periods of time. So they looked at all of those in terms of other relationship measures. Donors can demonstrate positive behavior, giving to the organization, high donation frequencies, or giving large amounts of money, but not want to get direct marketing communications or have that type of relationship with the organization. And then they went on to say, they found that in the study, there was a significant portion of donors, 45% in their study, who want to help with their gifts, but don't want to engage collaboratively with the organization, don't want to opt into email, don't want a long-term relationship. And so, yes, good donors to have, because if they are 45% of your file, they're kind of by definition good donors to have. They are donating. But the fact that someone is donating isn't necessarily predictive of whether they want that deeper relationship. Now, there are some caveats to this, obviously. Something that the researchers didn't think of, or at least I didn't see in the study, is it could be the nature of how this organization solicited before 2013. It could be that they had swamped all of the donors who give frequently and all of the donors who give large gift amounts with membership offers. So they had skimmed the cream off of the file over time. And so by the time you got to 2013, the people who are left in the giving frequently cluster are the people who resisted giving in the past. So that's a definite possibility, one that I don't want to discount. Possible demographic differences between these different clusters. They didn't find any statistical significant differences that I remember. And another question is a portion of their donor base emergency givers. They did not say in the study, but given that they are a poverty alleviation organization that does some international work, I have to think that some of these folks are emergency donors. And Barb, you've put your finger right on the pulse of, I was going to say finger on the nail of, but you have hit the nail on the head, and you have put your finger on the pulse of another possible explanation here. We know that emergency donors are notoriously fickle because they are giving for that emergency. They would fit that absolute definition of the occasional donor. They give occasionally, they give sporadically, they do give generously, but they don't want a deeper relationship. They don't want loyalty. And so I would imagine that this may be a result that is peculiar to this organization, that it's so tilted that it's negatively predictive to be a frequent giver or a high value giver. But I do think the implication that they have, that they say here, that yes, someone can give a lot, yes, people can have large sums of money invested in the organization, but still not want to have opt-in email, still may not want to have a membership relationship. Another question here is obvious quality matters on communications. I would definitely say that to be the case. You know, institutionally focused communications that aren't customized, that aren't personalized, those are going to be inherently, in my mind, more disliked. And you see that in results bearing out. I would say that shifts you along a spectrum, so that there are people who will want to get communications from an organization that they're supporting come what may. They want to be members, they want to belong, they want to get the newsletter, even if the newsletter isn't very good. On the other side of the spectrum, there are the heck no's, and I'm going to be a little bit polite with my heck there. I don't want to receive your mail. I don't want to receive your email. I just want to give you something for good works. Know that I have a good feeling, and then we walk away. And then in the middle, there are going to be some people that, to Kath's point, that want to receive quality communications, but obviously can take or leave those that are more institutionally focused. So I would not take this study as holy writ, that all of your most frequent donors aren't those that want to become members, don't want a deeper relationship. What I would take from it is, first, the highly predictive nature of whether someone opts into communications. That shows an entirely different level of commitment to the organization. They are raising their hands and they are saying, I am more likely to be loyal. I want a deeper relationship. I want more than I have had in the past, or at least I want to make sure that I am maintaining what I have had in the past. And then on the flip side, I would not say that don't ask your frequent givers for monthly gifts. That would be silly. But know that I want to become more deeply involved frame, I want to get the communication, I want to get the newsletter, doesn't work for anyone, regardless of how often they give. Another note here that it potentially reinforces the concept that newer donors can be asked for monthly gifts. Absolutely. In fact, that's probably among the best times, because it's when people are less stuck in their ways, when people have put you in the "this is my $20 a year organization" box. It is more difficult to break out of that box. We see it in ask strings, we see it in offer types. But I would also highlight, and this is before you've had a chance to disappoint them. Hopefully you're not disappointing them, but for some people, the experience may not be what they're looking for. And to that point, allowing them to customize the experience and set the terrain, whether it's channel, whether it's frequency, whether it's topic, those sorts of things, asking for it initially really helps customize communications for the future. But also to highlight the newer donors can be asked for monthly giving, I'm going to step out of the testing realm for just a moment and say that acquiring directly to monthly giving is more and more popular, in that there are channels that do it exclusively, like a face-to-face. There are those who do it primarily, like DRTV. And then there are those that are shifting more and more to monthly giving through the use of clever nudges like online digital. Still, the majority of gifts given online are one-time, but you still have a strong monthly giving contingent. And even to the point that Giving Tuesday last year, if everyone who gave a monthly gift on Giving Tuesday, perhaps the number two one-time giving holiday, the number one is probably New Year's Eve. If you annualized it and assumed that everyone stayed on for 12 months, which we know isn't going to happen, but a boy can dream. If you annualize that, the people who gave monthly gifts would be worth as much as the people who gave one-time gifts. And so even on the most one-timey holidays or efforts, there's still an ability to get monthly gifts and acquire people directly to it. So I'm now getting back off my soapbox and opening back up to questions or comments. Really good commentary in the chat. I really appreciate folks writing in and giving thoughts, because this is, I wanted to share it because it is a little bit of a weirder study. And hopefully it has some good surface level results, that opting in as not only a way of achieving communications, but as a predictive tool in your modeling. Also a plug to modeling that involves factors that go beyond the transactional, beyond RFM, beyond a traditional co-op viewpoint, that includes variables around things like, did they opt in? Have they downloaded materials? Are they clicking on the emails? All of those sorts of things. Comment in the chat. When we do give to get online name acquisition, give your email address to adding this resource. I'm a fan of adding. When you share your email address, you'll receive news and updates from organizations below the button. I have colleagues who absolutely hate that. Thoughts? I love it. One of the chapters in my book is all about give to get, essentially. But this idea of opting people into communications and knowing that you're opting in and making that explicit is vital in my mind. The other thing that you can do, and there are organizations in the give to get space that have done this very intelligently, and there's a great BitSorum did a web redesign of Norwegian Cancer Society. This is a few years ago, but it was a brilliant one because they went and they surveyed all of their users and they said, what are the things that you're coming to the website to do? And not surprising, the top 6 were all information about cancer, treatment for cancer. What do I do when I've been diagnosed for cancer? What foods should I eat? Those sorts of things were at the top. At the very bottom of the list were the things that we want people to come to the website for. Donate, volunteer, all of those sorts of things. And they had a significant uptick in this web redesign in the number of people who became donors. And I'm talking double, triple in terms of significant uptick, where they redesigned the site to be about the content that people went there to get. And at the end of the content piece, they would say, information like this is just one of the many services we provide. Will you support it? And so giving the person what they want first, and then following up, whether it's at the bottom of the content or in the email that follows along onto when you share your email address, you're opting in for email updates. I'm guessing there's probably going to be an automatic email that goes out to that person that says, hope you enjoyed it. And by the way, if you want to support content like this in the future, here's how you can do it, to its own customized donation form. That's really strong because you are giving the person what they want first and then asking in return. So my colleagues think that putting the line below the button will cause people to abandon the page. My feeling is everyone knows they're going to end up on your email list in that situation, so why not be honest about it? Honest is way better than dishonest. I know that we have many white papers on our site, and at the top of the page on the white paper that says, you download one of these, you're opting in to get updates about these sorts of things in the future. Now, the emails that we send out are usually for more white papers. So, not a lot of hard sales, and hopefully very much in line with what the person expected they would get when they downloaded a white paper. You come to a webinar, people tell you about other webinars. That's a good fit there. And so I would also, as you say, when you're doing the opting in, making sure that the communications that the person gets are very specific to the types of things that they thought they would be getting when they opted in. Very helpful for, if you were running Norwegian Cancer Society and there was an opt-in at the bottom of the article about cancer diet, having newsletter content that includes things like what to eat as a prevention tool or as a treatment tool, all of those sorts of things makes perfect sense. Sending ask after ask after ask makes a little less sense and goes to that point of, I don't want to get more institutionally centered communications, but if there are quality communications, quality implies relevance. So any other notes in the chat or in the Q&A? While you're hopefully writing those in, want to reiterate, we would love to have folks presenting their content on these calls. As you can see, tests that come from the real world. Hopefully you looked at the very first thing that we said there and said, oh, round amounts for donations work. In a mail piece, they increase average gift, they increase response rate. Let's get that into our next package. Things like that are super actionable, and we love to be able to share that with the community. And then the second thing is, even if you don't have anything to share, if there are other things that you're interested in, if this has sparked some things, feel free to reach out. Again, my name's not actually Shannon McCracken. I use her login to access the webinars. I'm Nick Ellinger. I am at nellinger@wearemore.com. That's NELLINGER @wearemore. That's more with 2 O's.com. Okay, and so Barb has said we've had success using social proof to increase average gift. Barb, would love to have you present those results. If I remember correctly, you do something really interesting where you are not only using social proof, but you're localizing it, if memory serves. So that would be really cool, and you and I can talk offline about presenting that if you're game for that. And then there's a question about do one on lapsed donor reactivation. Sure, that I am pen and sticky note. I would love to, if folks on the call have lapsed donor reactivation tests that they would love to share, would love to feature those as a part of that. But failing that, I can absolutely go through the some of the tests that I've seen, as well as some of the literature, and see that we can get that. It's going to be an increasingly vital topic. We're not seeing that the COVID donor, and I'm using scare quotes here, is that much different from the donors that have come before or since. If anything, they're a little bit more valuable, as we're seeing from our SimioCloud data and some of our caging data. But they're new. And new always has challenges in activation. And so if you got a new donor in 2020 and they lapsed in 2021, that would be, there's this pocket of people that we potentially have the opportunity to reactivate in the coming years. It's probably outside of the purview of test of the month. I'll see if there are some good tests on it. But one of the things I'm seeing more and more, and being more and more effective, is that multi-channel outreach, that it isn't just a male piece, even if it was a quote, just a male donor. More and more people seem to be using channels as part of their influence that may not show up as the channel of transaction. You know, someone gets the mail piece, they make the donation online, but it's the mail that did the influencing, or vice versa. And so that multi-channel outreach, when we've tested it, has been very successful, especially for lapsed donors, when there's that sort of need to remind the person about what it is you do, why it is their gift is vitally important. Okay. Thank you so much. Phone tends to bring us the highest response rate, as you might expect. I will say that I noticed that in, I want to say it's Blackbaud. Yes, their sustainer benchmarking. They have found for the second year in a row that phone was less and less successful at monthly conversion. So not lapsed reactivation, but phone can be very effective. And one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about as we talk about lapsed giving is that the lapsed donor, by and large, does not think of themselves as lapsed, especially if it's that at that 13-month mark. You know, they didn't mark on their calendar, I gave on May 5th last year, I'm going to give on May 5th again next year. They don't do that. And the fact that we flip a switch sometimes at May 6th, the year after, and you have gone from active to lapsed, they're not processing like that. And so it's a really interesting technique. And phone, along with customization, can really help cut through some of the noise to say, you know, you haven't donated in a year. Let's celebrate the gift that you've made, and let's see if there's something you want to make going forward. So thank you very much for a thrilling chat today. I always look forward to these. Please reach out if you have any questions, if you have any tests. If you missed that email address, nellinger@wearemore.com. I'm also on LinkedIn pretty much all the time as a professional. So feel free to reach out there as well. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.